talked about accountabilities. We talked about events. Now let's talk about artifacts. Now, artifacts, to make the stupid joke, feel like Indiana Jones, like artifacts, right? So artifacts represent work and value. Now, work and value, that's what we're doing here. We need a way to structure ourselves. We're working out of some things. What are we working out of? We're working out a product backlog, a sprint backlog. We're producing value in the sprint. Now, to draw a really not well-formed picture, like we have ideas over here, right? Those are all in the sprint backlog, and they're, the coolest stuff is at the top. But the coolest idea is still an idea. You can't really touch it, feel it, whatever. You need to build it, right? And so we can't build everything. So this product backlog needs to be converted into a sprint backlog. We have the stuff that's ready. We bring it into the smaller little bit, chunk, boom, boom, boom. Now these ideas are like on the hopper. They're on the oven, right? We're going to get ready, on the range. We're going to get ready to cook these things. And then boom, through the cooking, working together, we produce value. And that's the increment. So the three different artifacts are the product backlog, the sprint backlog, and the increment. Like the thing that the person can use, play with, all that stuff. That's what we want to do. So 1, 2, 3. That's what we got. Now, okay, what we want to do is we say each artifact contains a commitment to ensure it provides the information to enhance transparency, focus, and adaption, right? And so if we think about each one of these things, like, let me just go in here, like uno, doso, threezo, 1, 2, 3. The product backlog, what is its commitment? Now, the product backlog, everything in the product backlog is in there so that it supports the product goal, right? Can't be focused unless we're focused, right? That seems obvious, right? So like, why is everything on the product backlog? Well, it supports the product goal. So that's the commitment, right? That's what it is, right? That's the commitment. Is these things are right here are the commitments, right? These things right here. Okay, so the product backlog, its commitment is what? The product goal. Now, if we think about what's the commitment in the sprint backlog, what's that commitment? The sprint goal, right there. And then lastly, what's the commitment of the increment? That is the definition of done, meaning we are not going to do things willy-nilly. We are going to be crisp and quality focused, and we're going to do things right because the customer deserves it. So the three commitments for the three artifacts are, I can't spell, but I'm going to try it. The three artifacts are the product backlog, big list, little baby list, the sprint backlog, and the third increment is, or the third artifact is the increment. Boop, boop, boop. It's like how genius gets built, from an idea to like a physical thing, right? That's what we're trying to do, a digital thing. And the commitments for each of them make sense. Product goal, sprint goal, definition of done. That's how things get born. That's how it works. Now, these commitments force empiricism, meaning we either did it or we didn't do it. We learned or we didn't learn by the facts, right? Now, the product backlog. Let's go to artifact number 1, product backlog. Product backlog, we've talked about this emergent ordered list, meaning everything that we could possibly do, not saying we're going to do it, coolest stuff at the top, broken down to a level of readiness that the team could bring it in and start working it right now, okay? Product backlog is emergent ordered list of what is needed to improve the product. It is the single source of work. Double down on that. Single source of work. If people are working on things that are not on the product backlog or did not originate from the product backlog, then you do not have commitment to the Scrum process and you do not have focus. Those things are values. You violated them. Get better. That's life. Okay? Single source of work undertaken by the Scrum team. Sweet. Product backlog items can be done, product backlog items that can be done by the Scrum team within one sprint are deemed ready for the selection and sprint planning. So keyword in there is the ready part right there, okay? Now, definition of ready, they don't really define what that is in here. We'll talk about it in other things, just like the standard by which that the team goes, oh, that is eligible to be brought in, okay? We can understand it enough to build it if we had to. Now, these PBIs, product backlog items, usually acquire this degree of readiness and transparency after refining. So you can't just say, oh, I came up with an idea, throw it on the list, good enough. No, got to break it down. That's what we got to do, all right? Now, product backlog refinement is the act of breaking down and further defining product backlog items, user stories, into smaller, more precise items. Chunking it up. And when you chop something up, you have to, you don't just like rip it apart. You rip it apart and clarify. Rip it apart and clarify in a positive way. Okay? The ripping it up sounds negative. I was just saying that part of it, we need to be positive. Okay? And realize product backlog management is an ongoing activity. The breaking down of the things at the top, it's like a conveyor belt. We got to keep the stuff at the top clean. All right? Got to add details such as description, order, size. All right? Attributes often vary with the domain of work. Right? All right? Now, the developers who will be doing the work are responsible for the sizing, meaning the product owner needs to chunk it up and break it down, but they shouldn't do it alone, right? They should bring the developers in to help. Is it the right size? Is it the right scope? Is it the right this, that, and the other thing? They're going to bring help to do that iteratively through the process, not just in sprint planning, okay? The product owner may influence developers by helping them understand and select the trade-offs. It's a conversation. It's not like we throw the cards to the developers, they break them down, and then we just take them back. No, we explain them to them. We work them out. We give them the challenge of breaking it down, and then we talk about it back and forth. We're trying to get a good product out. So with the backlog, what do we say the commitment was? The product goal. All right. The product goal describes the future state of the product that can serve as a target for the sprint team to plan against. The product goal is in the product backlog. Think of it like the North Star drawing the product backlog items to the top, okay? The rest of the product backlog emerges to define what will fulfill the product goal. Like what is that's that gravity of the product goal pulls thing. It's like, it's unearthing out of the ground, like, all these like user backlog item, product backlog items, things there. Now it doesn't happen organically, like, they just show up. No, you got to do some conversations. You got to do some thinking. You got to bring the right people in, okay? Now, okay, the product goal is the long-term objective for the Scrum team. They must fulfill one objective, meaning the product goal, before taking on another. Meaning we can't have 4 goals concurrently for the backlog. One goal at a time. Now, you as the product owner might know my first goal is this, then this, then this, then this. You might have them in your brain organized, but right now, focus them on one, align the backlog to support that, hit it, move to the next one. All right? Now, we talked about product backlog. Let's talk about sprint backlog. Sprint backlog is composed of a lot of things. Now, it's composed of the sprint goal. It's composed of the product backlog items that the team has selected to do, and the actionable plan. So if we look in here, it shows the why, goal, the what, the product backlog items that we're going to do, and the how, underneath the product backlog items, the activities that they're going to complete. That's all wrapped up into the sprint backlog. Okay. Now the sprint backlog is planned by the developers. It's their plan for getting the work done. Okay. It's highly visible. It's a real-time picture. It evolves, should evolve as they go through it because they're going to learn, right? Very rare that we perfectly nail down like the activities in the sprint and just be like, dude, we nailed it. But just following A, B, C, D, F, G. No, we're going to learn stuff. Stuff's going to break. There's going to be defects. There's going to be dependencies and risks and all these things. We got to evolve it as it goes. So they said, consequently, the sprint backlog is updated throughout the sprint. Nothing wrong with that, as long as it keeps supporting the sprint goal. It should have enough detail that they can inspect their progress in the daily Scrum. That's what we need to do. Now, sprint backlog, its commitment is the sprint goal, the little incremental goal that gets us on the way to the product goal, right? Single objective for the sprint. What jump in functionality we're trying to do, or value or whatever, okay? Although the sprint goal is anytime there's like a word of although, we just want to focus our attention. Although the sprint goal is a commitment by the developers, it provides flexibility in the exact work needed to achieve it. We know what we need to accomplish. There's flexibility that like, hey, if we realize something's lacking, we can provide that, okay? It creates coherence and focus. That's what we need. Everybody's got to work together, okay? Now, the sprint goal is created during sprint planning. We said that, and it's added to the sprint backlog. Sprint backlog, think of it as a bucket that contains all those things. The goal, why, the items, what, and the plan, how, okay? For getting those things done. Now, developers work during the sprint, so they keep the sprint goal in mind. That's their gravity pulling them. And so, if the work turns out different than they expected, they collaborate with the product owner and go, dude, we're going this direction. We realize this. We are stuck. We got a rock. We got problems. This is what we realize. Let's talk it out. What do you want to do? This is what we recommend. What do you want to do? All right. So they can adjust it. All right. Now, the last artifact is called the increment. That's like, think of it like the feature being born. Okay. With just a crispy quality. Okay. An increment is a concrete stepping stone. Love that wording. Concrete stepping stone toward the product goal, accomplished during a sprint. Each increment is additive to all prior increments and thoroughly verified, ensuring that the increments work together. Meaning that, like, it's not good enough just to build one functionality. If it doesn't work with the system, it ain't done. Makes sense, right? And so you got to make sure they work all together. It's got to provide value, got to be usable. So we're not doing things in theory. Oh, it doesn't really work, but it's a pretty picture. Nope, it ain't done, bro. Okay? Multiple increments may be created within the sprint. We are currently in a sprint right now, my team and I. They are a couple days in, and they have one of the features that is going to be released to you out there in TV land, or students, and it's a couple days in. It's ready. I reviewed it this morning. We found some issues. Found some like little tweaks. They're making those little tweaks right now, and it's going to be pushed out by the end of the day. It's going to go out. I've authorized it. Once they go, we'll take a look at it again. I'll take it for a ride. Then bang, Lord willing, by the end of the day, it's going to go out. A couple days into the sprint, and they're going to work, at a sustainable pace to get another increment done by the end. Ain't it beautiful? That's the game, okay? Now, the sum of the increments is to be presented at the sprint review, but you don't need to wait until the end, like I just explained, okay? However, maybe deliver. Okay, here we go. That's exactly what it says. Hey, I've read this book before. However, an increment may be delivered to the stakeholders prior to the end of the sprint. And ain't that cool, bro? Like, you do not have to wait to the end. And so as we framed up the sprint planning, the question I asked them was like, dudes, like, these seem like two different things. Which one you want to get done first? This one. How long are you going to take? About 3-4 days. Can we deliver it after that? If you want to, they said. I said, I want to. So make it. Let's do it. I'll check it. Let's roll. Yeehaw. Happy days. Okay? Now, the sprint review should never be considered a gate to releasing value. That's obvious, right? It's not a gate. It is an inspection point, if you will. Okay? Work cannot be considered part of an increment unless it meets the definition of done. And this is something that you've got to understand. You got to understand this, all right? So the definition of done is so important. The acceptance criteria is not the definition of done. The acceptance criteria is not defined in the Scrum Guide. Acceptance criteria are the unique characteristics that must exist in the specific feature at the end of the build, okay? Of that feature. Oh, when you hit the button, this happens. When you do this, this happens. When this blah, 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 this happens. Like, that's what it does. Now, the definition of done is larger. It means any time that we build something, it is to this level of quality, and this is what we clearly define as quality for anything. Doesn't matter if it's a button, it's a slider, it's a web page, it's whatever. We operate always to this definition of done. Acceptance criteria for each will be different. Definition of done overall is a standard of quality that we operate toward. Okay? So the commitment for the artifact or the increment, right, is the definition of done. The definition of done, by the letter of the word right here, is a formal description of the state of an increment when it meets the quality measures required for the product. The formal description of the state of the increment, the thing that we've produced, the functionality that we've produced, when it meets quality measure for the product. Meaning if we did it, we did everything, but we didn't test it. Didn't meet the definition of done, bro. Every single thing we build, we fully test, we code review, we document the code, we get it approved. That's what we do. I don't care what we're building, this, that, or the other thing. We always operate to that level. That's what we need to do. Now, I think this is poetic, but I'm not a poet, okay? So I could just be a goofball. The moment a product backlog item meets the definition of done, an increment is born. Now, it's not exactly poetic, but it's important, okay? Now, when we do meet the definition of done, building something to a definition of done, meaning it's fully built, the acceptance criteria is satisfied, it's been fully tested, been code reviewed, it's been documented, whatever your standards are, as soon as that happens, you're like, Bing, check, 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 check. It's born. Here it is. You can take it for a ride. It's awesome. So that is super important. The moment a product backlog item meets the definition of done, an increment is born. It gets its wings, right? All right. The definition done creates transparency by providing everyone a shared understanding of what work was completed as part of the increment. Meaning, like, if you're lazy in your work, or I am, and I'm like, we'll do the details later. It's like, no, dude, we all operate to this standard. Cool. If the here, let's focus on this thing. If a product backlog item feature does not meet the definition of done, so what do you think? I've beat this horse. I'm going to continue to do it. If a backlog item does not meet the definition of done, what happens? Oh, we'll do it next time. Oh, just release it. We'll figure it out. No. It cannot be released or even presented at the sprint review. So it can't be put out to the customer if it ain't meeting the definition of done. And we ain't even going to look at it during the sprint review. That seemed pretty crazy, possibly, but there's a reason. What do you think the reason is? Well, first of all, it focuses everybody on quality, that we must do everything to the level of quality. And when we review something, we're not just saying, oh, your progress. We're reviewing how it solves the problem. And we're inspecting it against its ability to solve the problem or create the value that we intended it to do. So if it's not fully done, it is not ready to see if it really does what we need it to do. So we shouldn't look at it there. So what happens to it? Well, it returns to the product backlog for further consideration. Now, what does that mean? That means that if it is not done to the definition of done or completed to the definition of done, can't look at it in the review. After the retro, the sprint will end. That backlog item will go from the sprint backlog. It'll be like 87.3% done, whatever. It'll go back to the backlog, the product backlog. And the product owner has a decision to make. We've invested this time, this money, this stuff. We learned this. What do we do now? They may pop it to the top of the product backlog, line it up in the next sprint. Boom, work it through, deliver it. Maybe. Or they might go, it just ain't worth it, bro. We've done enough work and it just ain't worth it. We ain't going to do it. We're not going to throw good money at bad or bad money at good. I don't know which one of those things. We ain't going to do any more work on it. Okay? That might be it. Or it might be, we've got to move to something else. I want to do it, but it ain't the right time. We'll come back later. Whatever the decision, it is not going to be a buffer time. Oh, we'll do it now. No, goes back to the backlog. Next sprint starts. Decisions got to be made. If the definition done for an increment is part of the standard of the organization, meaning if you walk into Alliance International, Joe Smo company, whatever you live in, all right? If they have a definition of done, hey, at Joe Smo International, we have a definition of done. Okay, if it's part of the organization, defined by the organization, all the Scrum teams must follow it. If Joe Smo International does not have a definition of done, does that mean everybody can do whatever they want to? Woohoo, laissez-faire, don't worry about quality. No, we got to operate as professionals, bro, as a Scrum team. So what we got to do is the Scrum team, if the Joe Smo International company doesn't have a standard of definition of done, Scrum team must create the definition of done that's appropriate for the product. And we operate toward it. That's the game. We hold ourselves at a quality standard that exceeds other people. That's the game. That's what we do, all right? Now, developers are required to conform to the definition done. That sounds draconian, whatever that means. Like, we got to operate. It means that we're not going to be willy-nilly and slough off the definition of the quality. We operate to a high quality standard. That's the only way we're going to get better and the only way the customer is going to rave about us. And we're in the business of raving customers, okay? Now, if there are multiple Scrum teams working together on a product, they must mutually define and comply with the same definition done, all right? Now, friends and family, that is the Scrum Guide. I went long, I drank a bunch of coffee, my voice got ripped up halfway through, but we pushed through, brothers and sisters. So what I want you to do is reflect on it, talk about it, go out there, make Scrum your life. If you don't live in a Scrum world, try a product, try building something, developing something, a new process or whatever. Use the Scrum Guide. as the rules of the game. That's the thing. And believe me, print out a copy, get a PDF copy. It's free online. You can get it from my site as well. Get out there. It should be tattered, and you should be going and reflecting on it and talking about it and scribbling in it and doing all those things and thinking about how you're going. It is your guide. I mean, you expect a genius? Don't look for it for me. It's going to be just something you reflect back on. And remember, it's a lightweight framework. It helps teams, organizations, and people generate value through the adaptive solutions for complex problems. Meaning, get into the fight, teach, guide people, set up the framework, and go for it, okay? If you need help from me, anytime. I would love to nerd out with your Scrum stuff, your problems, your things. 757-759-5282. You know my number. Call it, text it, whatever it. Scott at allinprep.com. That's it, right? Scott at allinprep.com. Yep, that's the one. 757-759-5282. Reach out to me and I'll help you. Go forth, do it. This was a long video series, but you're better for it. Have fun. See you later. Alligator.